Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be rating 8 of your drafts, which each bring something slightly different to the table that I think is worth discussing ahead of Game Week 1. If you're not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. I'm uploading daily up to the Game Week 1 deadline with tons of different content covered. So if you are new and you enjoy today's video, please do consider subscribing. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So for this video, I asked you guys to send me your drafts over on Twitter, and I was sent over 1,000 different drafts. Of course, a lot of them were quite similar, but I'm only going to look at 8 today, and I do feel pretty guilty that I can't go through and give a rating for all 1,000 of you, and I do apologize for that. But if you do want to get your team rated, as you can see at the top of the team here for FPL Pickle, we've got the predicted points and the team rating. The new Fantasy Football Hub My Team feature is now live, and you can get your team rated for free. You don't have to pay if you don't want to. You can use the link in the description, top line of the description. It is an affiliate link, but you don't have to pay anything. Click on the link, get your team rated, and if you enjoy the site, of course you can sign up for more of the premium benefits, but it's completely free to get your team rated, so you genuinely might as well do it, and it will give you a bit of feedback on your team. Just to show you what that will look like when you load in, so this is the new My Team feature. I've actually loaded FPL Pickle's team in here, and this is what it looks like. So the team's in, you can see the team rating of 94%, the game week rating of 93%, you got 66.9 predicted points, and you can actually go through game week at a time. Game week 2, you can see it jumps up to 95%, and the team actually continues to get pretty strong, which is one of the reasons that I like this team that was sent in. You can see that the game week rating here is 96%. So by all means, click on the link in the description, completely free, load your team in, and whilst I won't be able to look at everyone's team individually, at least you'll be able to get some feedback on it. But back to FPL Pickle's team. This we're going to call a flexible 4-4-2 draft. Now, this is a relatively template draft in quite a few places, but I liked it because I do genuinely believe a 4-4-2 is the most flexible formation to start the season. You can get maybe 2 or 3 really strong defenders, maybe one slightly cheaper one, a really strong 4-man midfield and 2 forwards, which means you can pretty much get to most players in the game you want, bar perhaps moving towards like the likes of Salah and Kane in this draft here. A lot of the players we've spoken about already in depth on this channel, the likes of Trent, Shaw, Gabriel and Estepinian in defence. I love that back 4 there. If I were to choose 4 defenders at the moment, that would be my exact back 4. We've spoken about how much we love Saka, Maddison and Fernandes too, and I think Haaland and Gabriel Jesus are going to be in pretty much everyone's teams at the moment. The things that I love about this draft and that are a little bit different, in goal we've got Sam Johnson, and Crystal Palace are actually 4th for expected goals conceded in the Premier League last season. So by all accounts, they are a very, very good defence and potentially unlucky not to keep more clean sheets last season. I do think Sam Johnson is first choice, but if it is Guaita, whoever it is that starts in goal at 4.5 million, probably going under the radar. And I do really fancy Crystal Palace to do quite well this season. And I've actually got them, we're going to do a predicting the Premier League table later in the week on Saturday. I'm actually predicting them to finish around mid-table, and I think they'll have a relatively strong season. So I like Sam Johnson as a pick. We've also got Pascal Gross in this team as well. A lot of people talking about Matoma, or do we go for Enciso or March? I haven't seen many with Pascal Gross. He racked up the FPL points last season. His data is okay, but he's on a lot of set pieces. He's very creative. And now with McAllister leaving Brighton, there is a very good chance, I would say about 90% sure that Pascal Gross will take penalties in the absence of McAllister. We'll have to wait and see if that is the case. We've seen the likes of Welbeck take penalties in the past too, but I think it should be Pascal Gross, so I don't mind him as a pick. And then finally, the thing I wanted to say is you've got in this team a really strong back 4, plus you've also got a very, very decent 7th attacker. You don't have 8 starting attackers, but as you can see in this team, at the moment, Brian Mbeumo is on the bench, as well as a really strong back 4 and 6 starting strong attackers too. So what this draft has that I've seen a lot of people don't have is a very, very decent bench, because even if you played Mbeumo ahead of, say, Estepinian or Gabriel, you would then have a really strong £5 million defender on the bench. So regardless of who you start in this team, you've also always got a very, very strong first sub. Not necessarily the second and third sub, but having that strong first sub is very nice because you don't have to worry about a player missing out altogether. It does create a bit of a benching headache, but I don't necessarily mind it. So I would agree with Fantasy Football Hub. I would say FPL Pickle's team is very, very strong here. I like the 4-4-2. I like the few different picks in Johnston, Gross, and I like having a strong first sub too. Let's move on to the second team. So moving on to draft 2, the reason I wanted to draw this one to your attention is it's called an Eye on Game Week 3 draft. And I think a lot of people, myself included when I made my initial drafts, are overlooking that fixture swing that we've got in Game Week 3. Now, of course, you will have free transfers to deal with this, and you might not necessarily want to load up on the teams, but there are two teams in particular that have a very, very strong fixture swing in Game Week 3, and those are Chelsea and Spurs, both under new management, both with a lot of things up in the air. Who's going to start? What is that system going to look like? What is the philosophy at the club going to look like? Is there going to be a lot of rotation? We need to wait and see on these things. But if you feel like you can get ahead of the curve and have maybe 2, 3, even 4 players from Spurs and Chelsea, if they do look really decent in Game Week 1 and 2, you are going to be 3 or 4 transfers ahead of the curve. And that can be absolutely massive at the start of the season. So I'm just looking here at Chelsea's fixture swing. In Game Week 3, they've got Luton, then Forest, Bournemouth. Villa's not an easy fixture, but then Fulham, Burnley up until Game Week 8. So really, really strong from Game Week 3. And then if we take a look at Spurs fixtures, they've got Bournemouth, Burnley, Sheffield United, then it's Arsenal and Liverpool, but then Luton, Fulham, Palace. So really, really nice fixtures, especially for Chelsea slightly longer term. Tottenham have a really nice short bunch of fixtures up from Game Week 3 till about Game Week 6. So these are two teams that potentially we are overlooking slightly. I'm not seeing a massive amount of them in teams. At the moment, some people have one of Maddison or Son. Not many people have any Chelsea players. And the reason I like this team is because it has Sterling and James. Two players that if they are starting, and you'd definitely expect James to, you would probably expect Sterling to, they are high upside players. James in particular is a massively high upside player. Yes, he's injury prone, but he has the opportunity to score points anytime he's on the pitch. And Raheem Sterling is an explosive player. We haven't seen that at Chelsea, but I feel like Pochettino could get something out of him. And I really, really don't mind him at 7 million. So I like those two. And you've got Son in here as well. And we've spoken about Son throughout the week too. I really like him. Explosive, high upside player too. And in general, the other thing that I like about this team, as well as having 3 players with that fixture swing in Game Week 3, is it's got a lot of goal scorers. Sterling, Rashford, Son, Saka, Jesus, Matoma. These are players that score goals, obviously alongside Erling Haaland. They're not assisters. Like in a lot of my teams, I've had the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Maddison and Solly March. These are players that will tick along with assists, but all of the attackers here are really good for goals. And even the defenders as well. Gabriel and Reece James are 2 defenders that have pretty high expected goals too. So I like this draft for a couple of reasons. Mainly the flexibility going into Game Week 3 and being maybe a little bit ahead of the curve, but also the amount of goal scorers that it has. Let's move on to the third draft. I should note at this point that it's fairly obvious that I'm not rating the drafts myself with a specific number, because all I'm doing then is rating how similar it is to my draft, because I obviously think my draft is a 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 100. So all I'm rating your drafts on is how similar it is to mine. So what I'm really trying to do here is just encourage you to think independently and think slightly differently, to show you that you don't have to have exactly the same team as everyone else, and you can actually still have a very strong team. But if you do want an objective rating that's not given by me, at the top of every team you can see the Fantasy Football Hub rating. So this one is slightly lower. The first 2 teams were 94% from FPL Pickle, and then FPL JJJ was 95% with the second team. This is 87% sent in from Marcus and 62.7 predicted points. I do really like this team. And the reason that I wanted to include it is because it is a Salah draft and it's also a 3-4-3. We're not seeing many Salah drafts at the moment, and we're certainly not seeing many 3-4-3s either. It's mainly a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2. And also some of the personnel is slightly different as well. We've got Pedro Porro in here, who looks very, very exciting as an option. His stats last season were absolutely exceptional. The only issue is, under new management, it looks like they may be playing a back 4, whereas Pedro Porro last season was absolutely brilliant in a back 5, tends to be better playing in a back 5, where he's almost playing like a right mid. So we'll have to wait and see, does he start in the back 4? We would assume so. And how effective is he in the back 4? But I really like him at 5 million. The other things that are slightly different about this team is there is no Manchester United attack. And a lot of us, I think about when in the polls that I've done, about 80 to 85% have at least one Manchester United midfielder. So I feel like this is potentially quite risky, but also quite high upside as well, because if Manchester United don't get off the ground quickly, and in the past, I'm a Manchester United fan, so I know this, we have started the season pretty slowly. I mean, last season in particular, we really struggled from the off. Of course, Ten Hag was new, so he's had a full pre-season here. He's had a full entirety of the last season too. But Manchester United can start quite slowly, and if they do, then you're in a really good position here with this draft. You've got double Arsenal attack, Heung-min Son in there. You've also got Enciso, who is a player that if he starts and gets enough minutes, I prefer him to all of the Brighton attackers. It's just whether he will with the signing of João Pedro. And then the other player that's very, very different here is Vissa. Now, I don't know who's going to start up front in the absence of Tony. It could be Vissa, it could be and Burmo. It could be sort of a mixture of both, of almost like a two-striker formation. We'll have to wait and see. He's probably not on penalties because I think it will be Burmo on penalties. But at £6 million as a forward, he could be a really nice cheap option to rival the likes of Calvert-Lewin and Ferguson too. So I don't mind that. And in general, I do really like this team. I would probably agree with Fantasy Football Hub. I would say it's about an 87%. I don't think it's quite as good as the first two, but it's definitely offering something different, and I do really like it. Let's move on to draft number 4. So draft number 4 was sent in by Craig, and I've called it the eggs in one basket draft, just because in 2 different places, Craig has put a lot of his eggs in one basket. And we've spoken about this on the channel before. If you've read my book, The Mind Game, it'll be circulating above my head. I've spoken about diversification bias in a lot of detail. As human beings, we have a natural tendency to want to diversify. So in FPL, what that would mean is you wouldn't go for a double or triple attack. You certainly wouldn't go for a double or triple defense. And you want to try and spread as evenly as possible, diversify, put your eggs in different baskets. But this draft is the opposite of that. And I really like it because let's say you back Man City as the best defense in the league and you expect them to keep tons of clean sheets. Why not go for a triple up? Obviously, you want to have Haaland, but let's say you think Manchester United will score tons of goals this season. Why not have Rashford and Fernandes? So if you think in this case, Arsenal will score lots of goals at the start of the season, an Arsenal attack triple up is really nice. So that's the first basket that all of the eggs have been put into. We've got Saka, Martinelli, and Gabriel Jesus here. No Arsenal defence, but that isn't an issue. And at points at the end of last season, I didn't have an Arsenal defender. I had triple Arsenal attack, and it actually worked out really, really well for me. My nan who plays FPL, Nana Raptor, will be watching this. Last season, for like the majority of the season, she had Ødegaard, Martinelli, and Saka. For pretty much the entirety of the season, 3 Arsenal mids. And that worked really, really well for her again. So don't feel like you can't put all of your eggs into one basket, especially if you are really backing the outcome that you are backing. If you really think Arsenal will score goals, get 3 of their attackers. And then the other basket that all of the eggs have been put into here is double Chelsea defence. Now, I know a lot of people won't like that, but it's not that you're necessarily just backing the defence here. You've got Chilwell and James, who on their day, when they're fit, have better data than the majority of other defenders and some midfielders in FPL as well. So I really like the idea of a Chilwell and James double up here. And I feel like you've not only got the chance for clean sheet with pretty decent fixtures to start the season, but you've also got 2 defenders that have a goal and an assist in them and can get you those sort of 12 and 15 pointers. So I just wanted to show you this and just say that I really like the idea of going all in on the Arsenal attack and maybe even doubling up on the Chelsea wing backs. A lot of people won't want to go there, but I don't dislike it. The only thing just to note with this team is at the moment, Jason Steele is in goal. We have to wait and see. We don't know exactly who will start in goal for Brighton. We've got Verbruggen and Jason Steele. Once we know that, the Brighton £4.5 million goalkeeper could be a really nice option. But I like this draft. Again, I would agree with Fantasy Football Hub. I would say about a 93%. Love the Arsenal triple up. Let me know down below if any of you are considering 3 Arsenal attackers for game week 1. So draft number 5 was sent in by Frosty, and we're calling this the penalty takers draft, rated quite highly by Fantasy Football Hub because generally it is quite a template draft. I just wanted to draw your attention to the idea that penalty takers are, if you're new to FPL, penalty takers are obviously fantastic to own because regardless of how they play, they can come away with a 9, 10, 11 pointer depending where they play on the pitch just by taking a penalty. And we've seen that in the past a lot, specifically Salah. Salah's always been an excellent FPL option regardless of penalties. But there have been quite a few occasions where he comes away with a 9 or 10 pointer, having not done much but scoring a pen. And I feel like if you can pick a player that is a brilliant player to own, plus they have penalties, I really like it. And the reason I love this draft is it's got 7 penalty takers. All of the attackers are penalty takers, bar obviously Sims on the bench. However, they're also good picks in and of themselves, regardless of penalties. Maybe Pascal Gross would be the only one that if he wasn't on pens, I probably wouldn't be overly interested in. But the rest, I would probably be tempted to pick anyway. And I know, well, it felt like anyway, I don't know if I know, but it felt like there were a lot of penalties missed last season. If anyone has the stats, let me know down below. But it felt like there were a lot of pens missed. I would still rather have the opportunity to have a pen and have it saved or missed than not have that opportunity at all. I would always back my player to score it. We know that the XG of a penalty is at about 0.8. So more often than not, you would expect the striker to score or the midfielder to score. And as a result, I would always try to have penalty takers in my team if I can. And I love the idea of having 7 penalty takers in one team. Let me know down below. Build your draft now. Feel free to build it on Fantasy Football Hub if you want to. Like I said, top link in the description. Let me know in your current draft, how many penalty takers do you have? Most of mine tend to have about 4 or 5. We've got Haaland in a lot of them. I have Fernandes in a lot of them too. I have Saka in quite a few. And then other than that, it's just if I add any more with the likes of a Pascal Gross or a Calvert-Lewin or an Mbeumo. But a lot of the time, I'm only sitting there with 3 or 4. And I don't really like that. I want to try and get as many penalty takers as I can into my team. But like I said, let me know down how many you have down below in the comments. I do really like this team, regardless of the penalties, but having 7 penalty takers is such an added bonus. So I've probably ruined this draft by giving it a title, but if you've not yet looked at the title, stop looking and look at the team and tell me what looks different about it. Because to me, I looked at this team and I just said, yep, that's the template. And I went to skip past it. And it was actually the comment that someone added. And they told me this team has 4 million in the bank. Now, when you look a little bit closer, yeah, it does maybe look like a team that has 4 million in the bank because you don't have Salah, you don't have Kane, and you don't have Trent. Plus, you've also got Ferguson instead of Jesus, which a lot of teams obviously have Nkunku or Jesus. But it's still really strong. You've got Flecken, whoever 4.5 keeper you want, a really, really strong, fairly template back three, a relatively stacked midfield with Matoma, Fernandes, Rashford, Saka, and then Burmo. And then Haaland and Ferguson too. That 6 million spot could be anyone. It could be Ferguson, could be Vissa, could be Calvert-Lewin if you want it to, or it could even drop to a 5.5 with the likes of Morris. I love this because 4 million in the bank gives you so much flexibility for game week 2, 3, 4 and beyond. And you could end up having a little bit of money in the bank for the future. I think in the attached comment, FPL Darwin said that the 4 million in the bank is for Fernandes to Salah in game week 2. So it's basically a 1 week punt on Bruno Fernandes. I don't necessarily like that. I think you'd want to keep Bruno Fernandes regardless longer term. But you've got that option there. You could do Fernandes to Salah. You could upgrade one of your defenders to Trent. You could upgrade Ferguson to Jesus and still have 2 million in the bank. You could do Mbeumo all the way up to someone like a Son. You've got so many different options by having 4 million in the bank. And I feel like we're so shoehorned into thinking we've got to spend every single penny. Just drop in Trent out of the team. Drop in Jesus down to Ferguson. All of a sudden, you've got 4 million in the bank and so much flexibility. So I just wanted to draw your attention to this one because I love it. I've done it in the past. I think the most I've ever had in the bank at the start of the season is 1.5 million. I've never regretted having money in the bank. I've never gone into game week 2 and 3 and gone, oh, damn, I wish I'd have spent all of that money in game week 1. Of course, if the likes of Trent pop off in game week 1, you will have regretted not spending that money. But I really, really like this as a team. And I would agree with Fantasy Football Hub. 94% seems good. If you take into account the money in the bank, I would maybe even rate the team even higher just for flexibility in future game weeks. So really, really nice from FPL Darwin there. I'm glad he's drawn our attention to this. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know in your current draft, how much money do you have in the bank? Unfortunately, I do have 0 in the bank, but I am really tempted to just try and find, even if it's 0.5 or 1 million, can I make a downgrade that just gives me a little bit of flexibility in the future game weeks? Draft 7 is the only one I've selected that I would say is suboptimal or just not a particularly strong team in my personal opinion. The other 6 I've deliberately chosen very strong teams. I know they've been quite similar, but they've each had something that I think brings a really, really nice discussion point into the equation. This one is just very, very different, but it also does draw my attention to something else, which is don't be scared to back against something which is very, very popular if you genuinely don't believe that is the correct decision to make. We talk about groupthink and herd mentality all the time in psychology. If everyone is making a decision, you just don't get it, go against it. FPL is about having fun. FPL is about making your own decisions. And if you get more joy out of the game by going different, then please do it. It actually adds to the game by at least seeing some different stuff. Now, I wouldn't be dropping Haaland in a million years. You could give me 400 teams to manage this season. All 400 would have Haaland. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do really like quite a lot about this team. I love, love, love the City defense. This actually has triple City defense. Stones, Ederson, Ruben Dias. I wouldn't triple up because I would have Haaland, but I don't hate a double up on the defense. Yes, there are some really nice attackers like Foden and Grealish, but it's difficult to know if they're ever going to be nailed. So if you want 3 City to start the season, something like Stones, Ederson, Haaland is probably the safest way to do that. And let's be honest, you wouldn't be overly shocked if Man City went to Burnley in game week 1 and won the game 1 or 2-0. You would expect them to score more goals, but you wouldn't be shocked. And if that's the case and Haaland only gets 1 return and you get a triple clean sheet, you are absolutely laughing, especially if your alternative captain does very well too. So I'm not telling you to go against Haaland, but what I am saying is consider things outside the box. Double, triple City defense is something that no one else will be doing, and it could be very fruitful. We've got Saliba here instead of Gabriel. Everyone and their mother is choosing Gabriel. Why not choose Saliba? Their data is fairly close. Gabriel's a slightly greater goal threat, but I like that. We've got some slightly different options in the midfield too. Specifically, Martinelli, I think, is a really, really nice shout there. A lot of people aren't considering him. Why not? If we think he's going to be nailed, 8 million, really good stats, probably better stats than both Saka and Ødegaard. I like him as an option. The front three is slightly different as well. I've got Kane, Jesus, and Watkins. If you want to try and nail down which Chelsea attacker is going to start, I probably would be going for Sterling. But if you want to go for Madueke as well, then you've got options there. So I feel like I love this team because you get Salah and Kane, you get some different options in the defense. Even the bench is slightly different too. And it's just nice it's refreshing to see something slightly different. So I'm not telling you to do something different for the sake of it. But if you genuinely don't agree, we've called this the anti-Haaland draft. If you genuinely don't agree with something that's happening that is quite popular, for example, maybe you think Matoma's a trap or you don't understand why people are picking Mbeumo, then don't do it. Go slightly different and it could be very fruitful for you. Fantasy Football Hub rate this team at 83%. It is still an okay rating, but it is by far the lowest rating that we've seen in this video. And I would agree, it probably is the weakest team. I just wanted to include something slightly different towards the end of the video. Let's move on to the 8th and final draft. So just to finish off, we have a draft sent in by FPL Architect, and I've called this the template draft. It's not always exactly this, but I just wanted to present at the end the rough template that I'm starting to see emerge over on Twitter. And Twitter is quite representative of the engaged managers. A lot of the most engaged managers are over on Twitter. Feel free to follow me over there as well. The link will be in the description. And this is incredibly strong and incredibly template for a reason. As you can see, it has the highest team rating of all of the teams in this video, 70.2 predicted points and 98% according to Fantasy Football Hub. As I've said throughout the video, do get your team rated for free. First link in the description. It is my favourite team of the draft. I love it for so many different reasons. The back line is very, very standard. I actually think I prefer Flecken to Pickford if Flecken ends up starting and if, obviously, of course, Raya leaves. I probably actually prefer a Crystal Palace keeper to Pickford too, assuming we are 100% sure who is first choice. But the back three is fairly standard with Estepinian, Gabriel and Trent. The midfield is very standard with Saka, Matoma and Mbeumo. The slightly different thing here is the double Manchester United attack, which I actually really like. I think both Rashford and Fernandes, in and of their own right, are excellent picks. But you do see quite a few drafts where we have a Maddison in there, or a Foden, or a Son, or potentially even a cheaper midfielder too, or double Brighton attack. But I do like Rashford and Fernandes, and I think that will put you ahead of others who only have one of them. And then we've got Gabriel Jesus and Haaland. I don't think there's a massive amount to say about this team, but just to say, it's funny because I've just said don't feel like you have to go with what everyone else is doing, but in a similar vein, don't feel like you have to go against the template. The template is seen as this dirty word. It's the template for a reason. Everyone is picking very similar players a lot of the time because they are the best players to own. So yes, there is a bit of herd mentality and groupthink there. And yes, there are certain people that will just copy others. But a lot of us would come to the same opinion regardless of if there was social media and YouTube videos. A lot of these players are just priced quite kindly and we know they perform well and we know they've got good data. The likes of Rashford at 9 with his data last season is always going to be popular. Saka at 8.5 on penalties playing for Arsenal is always going to be popular. So don't feel like you need to back against it. Don't put together a stupid team just for the sake of being different. This is the general template at the moment. I don't know if it will be this week. It'll probably be next week now. It could even be tomorrow. I'll have to decide. I am going to present my latest draft, and my latest draft isn't a 3-5-2, and it isn't exactly like this either. I'm actually moving to a 4-4-2, and my latest draft actually has Salah in it. I'm slightly tempted to try and get the Egyptian King in my team. Let me know down below if you've got Salah, but I thought I would just end the video by presenting the template. Also, final thing I want to ask you for this video, let me know from this template, how many players do you have that are exactly the same? So guys, there you have it. Those are the 8 drafts that I decided to rate for this video, trying to present something slightly different in each of them and just draw certain things to your attention that you may have potentially missed and just encourage you to think a little bit differently. I do really apologize to the 1,000 people that I didn't manage to rate, but like I said, there is a link in the description to get your team rated by the AI over at Fantasy Football Hub. Make sure to check it out. And also, if you do decide to sign up, using my link in the description, you'll get 50% off. It's as little as £2 a month for that sign up. So make sure to check it out. And if you have enjoyed today's video, please do drop a like. Let's aim for 1,500 likes in today's video. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We are trying to hit 80,000 subscribers by game week 1. Until next time, which will be tomorrow, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.